Hello, my name is Paul Shelley, and you're watching Galactic Historian, a show where I take a look at the lore and history of sci-fi universes. Today we'll be discussing the new Imperators of the UEE in the Star Citizen universe, and their goal to reform the old tyrannical system to mixed results. Let's start off by explaining what the Imperator is. It is an elected position with a single term of 10 years. Only citizens can vote in the election, and the competition is fierce. If elected, they will control almost absolute power, being checked by the Senate in the case of creation of law. They have total control over the military and the advocacy, though both the High Command and the High Advocate do have some ability to check the Imperator. This means that the Imperator sets policy and uses their own power to influence the other branches to implement it. It's important also to note that we only know a handful of the 16 elected Imperators since the fall of the Mezzers, so this information is still incomplete. The first non-Mezzer Imperator was Erin Toy. She was a senator from Earth during Linton Mezzer's reign. She also was a key leader in the anti-Mezzer revolution of 2792, emerging from the chaos as the new interim Imperator. She went about quickly establishing an interim government with those who had supported the revolution, and passed reforms, which included returning to the UPE tribunal system and adding the term limits and stripping the power of the Imperator. She also passed the Curie-Cray-Perry-Line Act to end the long Cold War with the Xi'an, and the Fair Chance Act to protect the developing worlds from the fate of Garen, whose callous terraformation had sparked the revolution to begin with. However, when it came to truly implementing her goals, the Imperator failed. The goal of Erin Toy, and many like her who overthrew the Mezzers, was to truly and radically reform the government, in order to reflect the new humanity that the revolutionaries believed they were going to usher in. The ultimate goal was to change the name from the United Empire of Earth to the Democratic Stellar Union, and implement sweeping reforms which included moving the capital from Earth to Terra. This was called the Governance Modernization Act, and needed to be passed by the Senate in order to maintain legitimacy. We don't know the details from the reform, but it seems to have been more than just a simple name change and swapping of capitals. It seemed to favor the newer and more progressive planets in the Empire, and garnered significant support from the planets in Terra, Croshaw, and Bremen systems. It also scared those who were hoping for some minor adjustments to the current system, those who saw the UEE as fine as it was, but in need of a PR boost and moderate reform. During the run-up to the debate, Toy used all her political clout to push for the changes, and had some early successes, winning support of several key senators. However, corporate interests, who were afraid that the change would cause them significant losses, countered by sparking violent protests and spreading the message that this reform would collapse the economy. This came to a head when a pro-GMA and anti-GMA demonstration on Rytif, the capital of Bremen, turned violent. Fearing that humanity would descend into a bloody civil war if this issue continued to drag on, Imperator Toy called for a vote, knowing full well that it would likely fail. In the end, the GMA failed, but in its wake would spawn the Transitionalist Party, who continued to push for the GMA to be implemented. However, there was one more achievement which we still reap the rewards of today, a project championed by Toy but conceived by her diplomatic secretary, Marshal Leon, the Ark Project. Marshal Leon was a first-term senator when he was approached to become diplomatic secretary for Erin Toy. The decision was made because Toy needed someone who was as far from the old Mezzer systems as possible, a symbol of the future and not the past, to preside over the delicate diplomatic situation of the still fragile new UEE. Leon was tasked with doing something that would help strengthen the ties between humanity and its alien neighbors, something to prove that they were changing for the better. What caught his eye was an old failed Mezzer-era program designed to turn terraformers into weapons of mass destruction, Project Vespa. The project was an utter disaster, but illustrated the absolute folly of the Mezzer era. Billions of credits lost due to the ego of trying to turn the same technology that would cause their downfall into a weapon of terror. What remained of Vespa resided in the Tyax system, where the remaining terraforming platforms of the failed experiment sat. Too large to move out of the system and not valuable enough to break down and sell. It was here that Leon would conceive of the Ark Project. The Ark was to be a megalithic structure, a massive space station. Its purpose was to be neutral ground, a place where anyone and everyone could meet and discuss diplomacy. A space UN of sorts, where all interstellar governments would be welcome to use. The Ark Project would be our last great hope for peace. Wait, I think I've heard that before. It also would house the largest single repository of information in the galaxy, being a place where any and all knowledge was welcome to be stored and accessed. It would do this by moving around to different star systems periodically, to be the grand structure to symbolize the new humanity, dedicated to peace and understanding. In theory, the Ark was going to be built out of the old terraforming platforms as the basis of its structure, using the material from the failed experiment to form the frame of the station, literally beating swords into plowshares. However, the budget soon ballooned, and even its supporters in the Senate became worried when they noticed that the entire project was going to be out of control of the UEE, given to a newly formed private foundation. It took Imperator Toy to step in and flex her political power to get the project back on track. However, even then, it hit more snags. As Secretary Leon approached the Banu and Xi'an governments to add their knowledge to the Ark and join the project, both were less than helpful. The Banu enthusiastically agreed to join, as is their way with being asked to help create something new. But they didn't keep any extensive records, so they weren't able to add much to the Ark itself. The Xi'an were much less enthusiastic. Concerned that it might be a secret weapon, they banned the Ark from traveling in their territory and were hesitant to add to the libraries of data stores. Nonetheless, Leon pushed forward, incentivizing private industries in the UEE to share non-critical files and get the government to share everything declassified and put it into the Ark. As the construction of the station came close to completion, Imperator Toy, impressed with the determination of the young politician and reaching the end of her term, approached Leon and requested that he run for Imperator to replace her. He agreed and ran on a platform of being a consensus builder, able to reach out and discuss with other species of the galaxy and find common ground. During the campaign, when he was critiqued for putting so much data in the hands of alien governments, he famously said, "If anything, it will be our actions, not our openness, that will cause the next conflict." After a long and bitter campaign, Leon secured the Imperatorship. The same year, 2800, the first part of the Ark was completed, and Imperator Leon sent invitations to all the species of the known galaxy to attend: Xi'an, Banu, Tavaran, and even the Vanduul. Though no representative of the Vanduul arrived, the others did, and at the grand opening of his life's work, the Imperator gave a stirring speech. He said, "I'm proud to open these doors and beg all of you to fill it with the vast and colorful history that each and every species has to offer. Let this Ark stand as a testament and a proud record of the lives that we and those before us have all lived." While the Ark would ultimately fail to live up to Leon's grand ambitions of diplomacy, it did become the largest repository of information in the known galaxy. Over time, historians, archivists, and many others from all over the known universe came to search the databases and also add to them. Eventually, the Ark Foundation would begin to collate and release this information into two major projects, which have come to define the universe as we know it: the Galactopedia and the Ark Star Map. The Galactopedia is a free encyclopedia available on Spectrum and is constantly updated with new information from the Ark's archives. It is the go-to encyclopedia for most of humanity and many other species in the galaxy. The Ark Star Map is the largest map in the known universe. It holds up-to-date charts to get accurate navigational and travel information on just about every system known to humanity. These tools are so widely used and commonplace that few realize the sheer effort it took to even exist in the first place. something that has only been around less than 160 years, which was before only available in bits and scraps outside official UEE government records. Unfortunately for now, the remaining records of the new Imperators are incomplete. What we do know is that likely the 19th Imperator was Guittari Daemonia, who was most known for likely being the first Imperator to attend the new Invictus ceremonies on Earth in 2862. Their successor was Corbin Salih, who'd become legendary for being the Imperator to announce another groundbreaking project, Synthworld. This was the brainchild of the Clark Committee, whose creation sprung from the Fair Chance Act and in response to the massacre of Garen II. The hope was that this committee would figure out alternatives to the costly, destructive, and imprecise methods of terraforming planets. The solution they came up with, after decades of work, was to build artificial planets, tailored for life and able to efficiently house billions upon billions of lives, what the media would call Synthworld. Imperator Salih would secretly begin the project in the remote Kronos system, whose sudden classification to the public, alongside massive shipments of goods into the system, sparked the interest of the public. A conspiracy sprung up that the UEE was building some kind of doomsday weapon. However, finally, on Invictus 2872, Imperator Salih made his famous one-day speech on Archangel Station, the headquarters of the Synthworld Project, to announce the initiative to the entire UEE. He continued to champion this project up until his unforeseen death in 2922. However, since then, the project has not seen much progress, at least to the public at large, as the technologies that have arisen from its wake have remained classified. The project remains funded but under much scrutiny, and remains on the razor's edge of being abandoned. Imperator Tricoli is the next of the elected imperators we have a record of. Serving during the 2920s, he's most remembered for his creation of Project Eclipse, due to his own distrust of the Xi'an, fearing the UEE needed something to counter the power they were now at peace with, at least on paper. Tricoli's successor, Imperator Mikhail Sheridan, took up the project after his term of office and converted it to a key asset in the war with the Vanduul, and it eventually would release to the public as the Aegis Eclipse. Mikhail was also notable for beating future Imperator Kelos Costigan in the election of 2930, and being the Imperator who promoted Ernst Bishop to Admiral of the Navy. Kelos Costigan was a businessman, specifically a commodities trader in his young life. It is likely he was doing business during the height of the industrial boom of the mid-29th century, and his fortunes became wrapped up in the growing trade economy of the 30th century. He eventually ran for politics, having served as the High Secretary for 2 different imperators before becoming Imperator himself in 2940. He ran on the slogan Kelos Cares, and used much of his own experience as a commodities trader and entrepreneur to expand commerce across the UEE. His big accomplishment was signing the first ever trade agreement between the Xi'an Empire and the UEE, called the Human-Xi'an Trade Agreement, or Huxaw for short. This was made easier due to the unique trade agreement between the Xi'an company Aopoa and the human company Misk, which he leveraged to get the Xi'an to sign on. However, this move sparked some backlash, as extremist groups started to rise, preying on the xenophobic fear of the Xi'an that still lingered from the Mezer era. The most extreme, like Xenothreat, would use this as an excuse for violence. It even spurred an assassination attempt on the Imperator himself, which was thankfully thwarted. Imperator Costigan was also in power when the Vanduul assaulted Vega, and after an impassioned speech by Admiral Bishop to the entire Senate in the aftermath of the invasion, the UEE was finally officially at war with the species. This led to Costigan becoming the first non-Mezer Imperator to officially declare war in UEE history. The most recent of the Imperators was born in 2889 on Oya III. She was raised alongside Xi'an, as her colony was the only human colony to share a terrestrial border with a Xi'an population. She eventually got a job as a professor of integrated sciences and xenotechnology at Mentor University in the Redder system. She then ran for Imperator on the platform of science and technology as an outsider, hoping to increase the funding for public education, research, and even restarting AI tech. This Imperator, Leilani Anderson, was elected in 2950, and her legacy is still being written. While she has encountered some obstacles, she has succeeded in placing the first Tavaran into a cabinet position with Kijo-Tal. However, to achieve her goals, she still has a very much uphill battle to fight. There it is, the look at the elected Imperators thus far and their major contributions. Now, I want to know what you think about them. Who's your favorite Imperator? Do you think Imperator Addison still has a shot? Let me know in the comments below. If you really enjoyed what you watch, think about hitting that subscribe button for more videos like this. This channel is supported by my wonderful patrons, like those on the screen right now. If you too want to help make these videos possible, you can sign up on the link below. Until then, remember, Ex Historia ad Astra.